All right, hold it. Here we are. We're back with a different conversation altogether. And our main focus today is on how we get to have persons with disability, included and, empowered in terms of them getting positions, getting to the top of the hill. Remember, constitutionally, it declares that they also need to be awarded some of these positions courtesy of affirmative action. And so we discussed that this morning alongside Steve Njenga, who's a project lead, Enable Me Kenya. He will be telling us what the entity deals with and, what exactly they seek to achieve in terms of, setting up the agenda and also getting to that level where we speak of inclusion for persons with disability. And also Collins Mutindi, who's a music producer, and he will be telling us also how in his own special way in terms of music production he is also creating this space to appreciate persons with disability. So let's get into that conversation as we welcome your feedback. #Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47K. Indeed, a conversation that is worth having even as we get to have these people feel as part and parcel of the society. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. And I think we get straight into the conversation as you probably tell us what it is that a project lead does, and then we come to Collins to get to understand how in his own space he is making sure that persons with disability get or gain the respect that they deserve in society.
Yeah.
I'll start with you.
Thank you. My name is Steve Njenga. I am the country director for Light for the World. Light for the World is an organization that advocates for inclusion of persons with disability. And within Light for the World, we have many programs which are gearing towards that. One of them being Enable Me, which I will talk about. And all our work in Kenya is about economic empowerment. So that's what we do. Economic empowerment? Yes.
Across?
It is
for persons with?
Across all types of disabilities.
Okay.
We don't discriminate and say we only want to focus on this type of disability or this type of disability. And for us to do that, we build a lot of partnerships with organizations of persons with disability which are specific to those types of disabilities. So it allows us to spread across and looking for opportunities in business, because all the target groups that we work with are in business. They are either doing sales, they are doing marketing, they are farming, they are making shoes, they are making carpets, they are painting, they are financial advisors. They are cutting across.
Yes. How long have you been in existence?
Light for the World has been in existence for over 30 years. Founded in Austria, has spread across a couple of countries in Africa, in South Asia. But in Kenya, slightly 4 years. Okay. So not very old in Kenya. And all the work has been around this economic empowerment and also eye health, because that's how the organization was founded, really focusing on eye health, visual impairments, but slowly advanced to realizing that there is more need for this kind of intervention, not just those with visual impairment, but also those with all other types of impairments.
Notable progress? Notable progress
indeed. Up to now, we have reached about 800 entrepreneurs in the last 2 years. These entrepreneurs doing amazing business. They are in carpentry, they are in shoes, they are in textile. And we have seen an increase. I think it's about 30% increase in employment opportunities within those the same target group. What that means is that by empowering one person, they hire another person. That's how we look at impact from an employment perspective. That now you need an extra hand because we have given you an opportunity, we've given you a platform to really realize your potential, and then you hire one extra person. So that's some of the things that we can celebrate, as well building a lot of partnerships with organizations which are really embracing, including people with disabilities as employees or as service providers.
All right, Collins, we've not forgotten you, and now coming to you, many would probably ask, why do we have a music producer in conversations that pertains to empowering the persons with disability? I'd love for you to tell us what it is that you do in your own capacity and why you sit here with us today.
Well, my name is Collins Mutindi, a music producer.
Yeah.
who is trying to change the narrative in the industry. Growing up, there's this culture for music, and everyone loves music, even from the Bible. But then, music is something that is growing. And for artists, there's a culture that they've neglected a bit, and I realized and I noticed, and I took myself and I dedicated my passion to it. So I'm trying to include, not trying, I am including the people who are differently abled. We don't call them disabled. They are differently abled into music videos and even audio. Now we are trying to even try to make audio for the deaf. Yeah. So that is what I do.
What informed this decision? Maybe an experience with living probably or staying with someone, or maybe a family member, close person who is differently able?
I will say I was born a creative. My dad tells me I was a creative from when I was class 3.
Yeah.
When I was about 3 years, in class 3, I was able to perform even for the president. So this thing continued until later on in life. After high school, I started DJing. So I was going for squad. You don't really have a gig, but you can go for a gig and borrow a session. So one time I was coming from a gig in Westlands, and then I happened to be so late, so I couldn't find matatus for going home. At Ambassador, I tried to interact with the people there at the Ambassador stage, and I noticed like 95% of those hawkers are deaf. And so when I've been growing from DJing to music production. So when I got to music production, I decided I will include these guys, because the only entertainment they have, honestly, is reading a magazine. Yeah. So I was just trying to infuse, and I must say people love it. People are embracing, and now on my latest project, which is supposed to be released this coming week, I have included someone who is called Solomon. He has a story. He came to me. He has a very, it's a nice story, inspiring story. He was born without hands. And then when the mother noticed that he was born without hands, the mother disappeared from hospital, and he was left there with the doctors and nurses. And so someone adopted him and took him to Dagoretti, Feed the Children, the organization there. And so this guy has grown. He has a very nice story. So if we infuse the stories and in music and incorporating these things all together, it comes out well.
Right. I know there's a musician in the country who's I think deaf, and and we've seen his music. It is amazing music. The likes of Jaguar have helped him, to bring out this music to life so that people can listen to that. The likes of Ludwig van Beethoven, we remember them and we say, that is indeed an incredible thing. But even as we speak of getting them into these spaces, we also acknowledge the fact that yes, this has been enshrined in the Constitution and the push is on, but there's been some level of resistance coming from their end, because as society has perceived them, this has been, something that has grew in them, and they have gotten to a point where it is hard to convince them that they can wake up in the morning like any other Kenyan or like any other person and march into an office and do whatever it is other people are doing, probably much better. How is it like, first of all, getting this society to understand their capability, to pushing them beyond their limits?
Yeah, very good question. This is what we are talking about, inclusion. What Collins is doing is including people with disabilities in his entertainment business. He's not targeting his music to only people with disabilities. He's not making special music or special entertainment for people with disabilities. We are not asking for special treatment for people with disabilities or preferential treatment because you want to have somebody employed with a disability in your company. You just get them, pick them, put them at reception desk. They have no work, they have no value. You just say, I have an employee with a disability. No, that's not the case. It is providing an opportunity or a platform for institutions to find out what extent can they be inclusive to people with disabilities in their core business. You find an insurance company and you ask them, how do you target customers with disabilities? Now, global percentage of a representative of people with disabilities globally is at 15%. I know that we are disputing the figures that came out in the census that was conducting recently, and there is a plan to do a census just to validate those figures. But if we still go with the 15% assumption, this means that 15% of the Kenyan populations are people with disabilities. If a household has 4 people, and you would assume that if each person is spread across just using those numbers, then we are talking about over 60% of Kenyans having a relative, a friend, or a family member with a disability. Now imagine the level of influence that that target group has to your product or service. If you are a bank and you are not inclusive, it means that someone with a disability cannot access the ATM machine, or if they come to the reception desk, the teller who is serving them has no idea how to serve them because then the client is deaf, or the client is visually impaired, and you're asking him, sir, can you sign here? How are they going to sign? Or how have you been trained to help someone with a visual impairment to sign a document? So if you are not inclusive of that person, then you lose them as a customer. You lose 10 of his friends, and 100 of his friends' friends, and 1,000 of his friends' friends. Simply because you ignored this person or you didn't think of them as a customer. So if you would think of them as an employee, the capacity that you get bringing them on board, that they help you to really open your eyes to the market of people with disabilities, if they are consumers of your products or your services. And not just them, but the people they influence, because they are parents to children. And those children might not have disabilities. So that parent determines where the child goes, what the child does, and the products and services that the child consumes. So if you from a business perspective, we are looking at value. Our motto in Light for the World, we say that you lose, what do you lose by not being inclusive? Because we have realized that we need to change the narrative. We keep talking about, persons with disability need an opportunity. It's true, but as a business person, I need to see value. Right? So what we are trying to show now is the value. And we show this value in terms of opportunity cost. How much do you lose by not thinking about disability inclusion? And any company will want to listen to this because they want to know, for us to get to the next level of growth, what do we need to do? Maybe you need to start, because the government of Kenya has done well, and we really thank the civil society that has been advocating for the rights of persons with disability in Kenya. So ratifying the conventions of rights of persons with disability and a lot of acts which have been passed saying that companies should hire at least 5% of their employees. It's fine, it's there, but it's not enforced. 2% of your total procurement should go to people with disabilities. It's fine, it's there. Nobody's going to penalize you for not providing 2% of your procurement. You have no metrics of measuring. If you would ask for a tender that TV47 needs somebody to come and repaint your office, how do you vet painters with disabilities? You have no capacity, no experience to do it. That is where Light for the World comes in. So if we come and sit down and you say you want to be inclusive, but you have no idea how. So let's sit down and let's build a profile of you. Maybe the way the structure is set up, it already excludes people with mobility aids, so people who have difficulty walking.
Okay, hold it right there. Let's loop in Collins and probably get to understand how then he operates, how differently he understands this, and I mean whether it's been a whole different affair having started with this angle that he has picked. For how long have you been doing this? For how long have you incorporated, persons able differently in your productions, and how has it been received? And how have you been able to work with them? Of what difference has this been?
My first project was in 2018.
Okay.
That's 4 years. And when I did my first project, I was trying. I didn't know much. I had that passion, but I was not experienced with it. But that little effort, it took me international.
Okay.
And people approached me. There are organizations that approached me. I got they took me to schools. I was connected to organizations that teach people who are differently abled. They're not disabled. I want to insist that these guys are not disabled, because being disabled is like disconnecting. These people are independent. I know a deaf person who has a family. He's a teacher. He feeds his family, so he's not disabled. He is abled differently. Solomon, this guy who was born without hands, he feeds. He did a very huge wedding. It was aired everywhere, and just including these people in projects, not really music, but other in vlogs also, and in projects, is changing. Is making an overhaul in the industry, and my wish is we see it change even in programs, adverts, as he was saying. A differently abled person is not seen in Kenya as someone who has a complete and a rich culture, because if we make it a culture of putting these people in our day-to-day, because you never know, no one, if it's not a curse to give birth to a person who is differently abled. Your cousin can be differently abled, so if we include them, that stigma of them, because I normally have a very difficult time, because there are people who send referrals, but when I approach the people, the person who is differently abled, they feel that disconnect. There's that disconnect. So they even fear. They think I want to use them and misuse them. You get my point?
Yes.
So there's that disconnect, and there's that perception that has been created that I'm trying to neutralize. And
it can be difficult, I would want to assume, because this has been in us for quite a while, and the sensitivity of this matter is equally at a higher level. Maybe we're trying to reduce this and not allow it to appear as though we are not sensitive anymore, but also just to remind us that we are equal, that there's nothing special or different from the rest of the people, and to paint that picture of, yes, we are human beings above everything. So even as we struggle to get that, do you suppose then that addressing the sensitivity of this matter and making sure that these people equally welcome such scenarios, then there needs to be a relook on the laws that have been crafted, probably have them defined differently so they can understand this, because I can tell you, even for us, before you get a story from someone, you film them, you have to get their consent, contrary from just filming any other person or inviting any other person on set. And so it is what has been painted for the longest of time.
Yes.
How do we get a shift from that before we even speak of understanding of how you get to treat them, how you get to understand them, how you get to deal with them once they're incorporated in your entity?
You know, as you speak, very many things are coming in my mind. It's simple things that we do that makes the whole difference.
Yeah.
In Kenya, I don't know how many languages we say we have, but I don't hear one language. I don't hear sign language as a language.
Okay.
So we say, we speak this language, and every tribe has its own language, but there is another one that speaks another language, which is never acknowledged anywhere. So if we would teach English and Swahili and sign language in all schools in the country, what would that do to the deaf community? It means that they can talk to anyone, anywhere. They can go to a street and ask for directions from anyone, simply because everyone else understands that language. Okay. So this narrative starts changing by things like those. That's saying, let's start teaching sign language. And then the other part is really building, educating, especially the leaders and people who are in position to understand what dynamism there is with disability inclusion. Because people look up to them, what they speak and what they say, they have a lot of influence. So when a cabinet secretary says that we are mobilizing for kazi kwa vijana, and we are looking for people who are of sound mind and people who are able-bodied, those two words, they mean something different to someone else. What do you define sound mind as? And yet we have someone with a psychosocial disability.
Right.
So psychosocial disability, you define it as not having sound mind, or it's given different names, or you're saying able-bodied. So what does able-bodied mean? You see? The influence, and everyone, and people listen to people who are in a position of power. That is why they also have the same potential of disrupting a lot, and they can also change a lot. So that is on one side of people who we look at as the duty bearers, organizations, government entities, but then there is people with disabilities themselves. They do have different impairments, and what we try to do a lot is we try to build capacity of self-advocacy. Self-advocacy means that if you are someone with a disability selling shoes on the street, and you approach a customer and you ask them, I have nice shoes, would you like to buy? Then the customer says, no, I don't want to buy. You happily smile to the next customer and continue selling to them. You don't feel that this customer didn't buy my shoe because they thought that I have a disability, so that it is because of my disability that the customer didn't buy my shoe. That is called self-empowerment. Self-empowerment means that that person is confident enough to accept rejection of their business or service or product, and happily move on to the next customer and the next customer, just like any other person without a disability. So it means that it is not just us talking to organizations, to government, to companies and saying you need to provide opportunities. It is also driving this narrative across the different people that we work with, across all types of disabilities, and saying these are your rights. First, know what the government provides for you. After you know your rights, how do you, within your rights, move around doing your business? If you are taking your child to school, to a special school, what are you provided for? What does the government said about children that are either going to special schools, and how does that relate with your tax compliance? Because then you're provided tax exemption. So how does that relate if you are applying for a loan, if you're applying for a mortgage, if you're applying for any other opportunity in any other institution? So first, it's the knowledge, because knowledge is power. And then it's across both to the community of persons with disability and the government. That is why we build a platform like Enable Me, so that people can come in and ask questions. When you feel not confident, someone in the media is coming to record a story in a home where the parent has a child with a disability, and you kind of feel this feeling of uncertainty because you don't know, are you doing the right thing? Are you handling this person correctly? Are you saying things you shouldn't say? And all of a sudden you really lose the confidence and you can't get the story right. So if if you are working with us, you can easily go to Enable Me and ask a question. How do you do a coverage for a child with a disability? What sort of boundaries should I not cross?
Okay.
You know?
Right.
And you have so many people responding to you there and then and saying, you can do this, you can do this, I can share with you a case study. Somebody sends you a link. It's like a big Wikipedia about disability.
It's quite a gray area, sorry, and a delicate aspect to balance. And maybe coming to you, even as you share your experience, like you rightfully put it, sometimes you go to them, you approach them, and with that goodwill to just include them and make them feel comfortable and part and parcel of society. But still, there's always that advice that there needs to be a special approach when you are dealing with persons with disability. What more have you had to struggle with to get them understand that yours is of goodwill? I mean, I remember back then, and I cannot substantiate this, and I don't know how valid those points were. As basic as, back then when we were in school and, school performances, drama festival, you could hear that, there's that one position at the top that has to be for them. Left for them, and you ask yourself, is this in goodwill? And again, if they're not given, you could see the emotions, and how disappointed they were. Technically, what you are speaking of, a scenario where I am selling this and I'm not, somebody else does not buy, then they feel like, it gets to a point where someone feels like, it's because of my situation or something of the sort. I mean, what more have you had to face, and how best do you suppose that out of your experience we can approach this, so that in as much as we are being special in our approach to them, we also do not keep raising the bar of stigmatization?
On my side, when I decided I'm going to do that, to include these guys in projects, I first of all did a research. And just like he's saying, a person who is differently abled, their education, economic and social is one of the lowest here in Kenya. And that being me connecting to them, or me trying to reach them, as I said, they think I want to use them. Maybe they have been used, or maybe there's that, they even have their own perception that, because it's a narrative that is going around. As you said, there's a chance that was being left for them in positions in schools, whether they are not performing well or they're performing well. I don't know if that's true, but according to my experience, they have that fear. There's that fear that they have, and before they give me the first. The first thing that they show me is that fear. But when they understand me, I take time. Both me and my wife have learned sign language, and we are a team, and I have a management team, I have a huge team. So when we start approaching them, and my wife is also a psychologist, so it really helps. So when we approach and they understand us, we don't just put them on project immediately. Yeah, we first of all show them how we are going to do this, if it's going to make money or if it's just for fame, But most of all, I try to bring them into this world of art. Like you find some of them are interested in different things, not just being on air or doing other things. I have like two of them who design our posters, who do graphics design. There's someone who is also like Solomon. He draws with his legs. His legs.
Wow.
Yeah, some really nice pieces. But then, when he takes the project out there to the consumers to buy, he faces what he just explained. Yeah, there's an artist called Gloria, who is my artist. He's signed under me. She's completely deaf and mute. Other than music, she's a hairdresser and makeup artist. But when she tries to, or she approaches a client, most of them they tell, we hatuwezi deal na wewe. You see, so that brings stigma. Even she loses hope. But when she comes to us, my wife is a counselor, professional counselor. We counsel them. There are sessions. We don't just put them on projects. So we counsel. We make them, we make them understand.
Yeah, and accept.
Yeah, and accept.
Okay.
Because as people we speak, most of us don't know that this is something that is inborn. It is born in them. It's not a curse. It is how God made them.
Right. Okay, well, allow us to take a quick break, gentlemen, and then we come back to speak of that. We come back to speak of, what really needs to be done in terms of incorporation of policies and laws that would probably conform us to making sure that, well, we don't just speak, but we implement and we create space for persons with disability after this break.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Nitajua nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God Church under Reverend Fred Gitahi as a senior pastor. We are located at Bahati, Makadara area in Nairobi. We run a virtual church service with online services every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. as well as the children's services from 10 a.m. Teens and youth services every Saturday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Nairobi Christian Center Bahati and on YouTube Nairobi Christian Center. Be blessed.
On the next episode of The Cook-Off Show with Alex Karan.
Welcome to my show. This is the cooking show where we just
come slowly. Wenyewe walisema ukweli. Wenyewe wanawake wanakuwa na maneno mingi. Sasa umeanza busi, umeanza kisho ya busi. Kwani yule busi de. You ready?
Wait a minute. Mimi uliniambia nikuja nichamushe kichwa busi alafu unanipatia hizi vitu gumu na kwa kitu ya maana mnafanyaga nini?
Shika hapa.
Unadhani nitaweza kumultitask?
Siwe tunasikia kama demo multitask.
Mimi sio mademu.
So very. Ni chita kweli?
Ni kama gadongoro yame.
From a distance.
I don't. Please. We were asking.
Well, still with me, Collins Mutindi, who's a music producer, and Steve Njenga, project lead at Enable Me Kenya. He's the other part. The umbrella body is Light for the World. Yes, and we are talking about how best as a society then we get to inculcate the values of understanding how, people who are able differently should be treated as part and parcel of society. And we also get them to acknowledge that indeed they are part of the society. And speaking of acknowledgement, and while we were on a break, we're just having a conversation on how we get these individuals at these key entities that we speak of. For instance, we pinpointed at the media, and we said, well, according to what it is, Steve says that he is yet to see, a top journalist who's a person with disability. And reality is that they are there, even across the world. But brings me to the question of, we could speak as society, and we could even lay the ground, and we could even have policies to make sure that this happens. But just how many of them are out here to acknowledge what it is that has been said for them? I'll tell you this for free. Most of the advertisements, job advertisements I've seen in the media, there's always that clause of women and persons with disability will be given.
Encouraged.
Yes, are encouraged and will be given priority, so to speak. By that morning you march into the interview, or you go for the interview, you realize that you will not see any of them that has come out for that, and then leaves us wondering, are they not there? Are they not in existence? Don't we have persons with disability that have studied for media and all these things? So is it because it is the case, or there's some level where they still are in denial? They still feel like, they do not hold a chance, or, they do not. We have one actually around here, and so we ask ourselves, what could be the driving force to get them coming out?
Very good question, which takes me back to how this whole came about. If you look at education and our schooling system, right now I've seen the government trying to push that we reduce on the special schools, and where a child can be able to function with assistance, what we look at as reasonable accommodation in a regular school, they don't have to go to a special school. And if you look at the statistics, in all the public universities in Kenya, we have less than 400 students. That is a staggering number. 400, across all years, from year 1 to year 6, across all public universities in the country. What does that tell you of the education that, how many people with disabilities are even coming to the university level to study any program? 80% of those are in KU, and they are in KU doing special needs. Because there has been this narrative, I don't know who came about with it, that if you are someone with a disability and you are fortunate enough to go to the university, go to KU and do special needs. But you can do whatever you want to do. You can do engineering, you can take law, you can go to the media industry. So the question is, if you go to media school and you are a student who is deaf, you have needs. What those special needs are needs to be provided for by that institution. We call it reasonable accommodation. It means that you are making the level playing field. If I have difficulty with movement, you make sure that in the space when I come to your school to study, pavements are well marked. I can access any place I need to go without having to ask somebody else, can you help me here, can you help me there? Because what equal rights also advocates for is independence. So you asked a question about what needs to be done, and why are we not seeing people with disabilities coming up and taking up these opportunities? It is because they have been marginalized for a long time. They didn't get an opportunity to study for what you're looking for. If you'd say you want a creative, or you want somebody who can do IT work, and you advertise for that position only for persons with disability, you don't find the kind of person that you're looking for with the kind of experience that you're looking for. Because if the opportunities for them to go to school and study that are not there, and the schools that are there are not inclusive. My accountant is deaf. He studies at KCA for his degree. What the requirements are for him to study at KCA is, you are deaf, come to college, bring your own sign language interpreter for all the sessions, and you have to pay them. So the rate of a sign language interpreter is 5,000 shillings a day. So he pays his sign language interpreter 5,000 shillings for the sessions that he has to be with him and then covers his transport. So what I mean by level playing field means that for any other student without a disability, they only need to pay school fees at KCA to study accounting. My accountant will pay school fees and pay his sign language interpreter. On top of that, 5,000 shillings, if he needs him 3 days a week, times 4 weeks, that is even more than the school fees, which is something that the school should provide for him to study. That is what I mean by level playing field.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So how many people would like to study accounting and are deaf and cannot afford a sign language interpreter for any college they go to?
Yeah. Very many.
No institution will provide you with a sign language interpreter, very few if there are any. That is what marginalization is.
Yes,
it means that somebody else who has visual impairment and they go to JKUAT to study and the lecturer is writing on the chalk, on the board, then this guy can't see. How is he expected to study? And then the industry is saying, oh, we are looking for people to hire and we don't have them. But you didn't provide an opportunity for them to study.
All right, this is interesting. Just how much more has been done towards, creating these opportunities as you get or as you delve into these waters even more? Do you suppose there's a lot that is being done at the level of the society in terms of the government to push for the same? I mean, there are very many institutions that support producers out there, very many institutions that support music out there, and I want to believe that you work with them. Do you suppose that when you go and speak of what it is that you do to them, there's some level of help, assistance, and a push towards ensuring that whatever it is that you're doing is well received with the society, or plays out well as would be expected to ensure that again these people will have that space?
Now, unfortunately, there's no organization that currently that is supporting me. I am well known in the industry, the music industry. Before I became a producer, I was a DJ, then an artist manager, and I managed very huge artists that are here in Kenya. But then, when I mentioned to some of them that I want to include sign language into my music video, they disconnected.
That is now in their own videos. So this is
It was supposed to be in a project with a very huge artist in Kenya who I was managing. So immediately I mentioned that, and remember this guy, I was getting in free studio sessions. I was getting him free collabos. I was getting him free transport. Everything I was catering for. But immediately I mentioned that, he disconnected completely. He stopped even receiving my calls. And putting sign language into music video is not easy.
Yeah.
And so before I put sign language in music video, I was in a gig that I organized in Gilgil, and I had taken this big artist there. And there's this street boy who came to me and told me, I can sing, and I want you to give me a platform. But me looking, I was judgmental that day. He's shabby and he was not just looking right.
Yeah.
And at some point I thought he wanted to maybe take my phone or something. And unfortunately also on that day, the program was not going as it was supposed to go. And for me to feature hiyo maneno, I decided, do you have a CD? Give it to DJ. Panda stage very fast. Do you know that guy? He killed the show. He killed the show.
Nice.
So I took his number. He didn't have a phone. I took his friend's number. And after a month or so, he contacted me. And on the same day, Magic Senga was coming from Uganda. And so I told Magic Senga, pick someone in Nakuru.
Yes, come along with them.
Come along with him. And I put this guy in studio. This guy is now a big artist in Kenya. Yeah, that is a story that I don't talk much about it, but because he talks about it and he gives credit where it's due. And so when I was trying to put sign language into music video, this guy disconnected.
Oh.
And so I don't have a big artist, and now I can't call media station. You know, media, you guys are funny. If you don't have a big artist, it's
business, so, my brother. It is business.
No. And so I settled for less. I started from scratch, and I decided I'm going to do now cultural music. I want to fuse now cultural music, Benga, Kikuyu. It was Kikuyu and sign language. And I do a standard video. And the frequency, because I know the sound, media station, there's that sound that they want.
Yes.
Put a proper sound. Not that Mugithi, proper sound, Kikuyu, and a mix sign language and gospel. Do you know, people from all over the world, they were calling.
Yes.
Not because of that song is Kikuyu or gospel, because of sign language. You know?
Yes.
And I was going through some issues that time. I didn't have a proper camera. It's a camera, but not crispy. It was not a very crispy video. But I'm telling you, that thing took us
to another level.
These guys who are denying to put these guys into videos.
Oh, now coming.
And you know, for that video, I only put sign language on the chorus only, because it was difficult merging
to do the entire.
The entire. But now we do that. Yeah, we have grown, we have learned. There's the new Kenyan sign language, and unfortunately, even the Bible. Most of 80% of deaf in Kenya are Christians, and unfortunately, even the Bible has not been updated to the new Kenyan sign language.
Wow, all right. I mean, that's commendable, so to speak. We have an entertainment show most of the Fridays, and so we hope to host some of your artists, you know, and we see how different this appears and how interesting. I mean, you still can enjoy the music, so I don't know why it should be.
The music, it's normal audio.
It's normal audio. It's just that there's that sign language interpreter.
And now in this coming project, which I'm supposed to launch any day, the management will decide. It's ready. The management will decide on which day next week.
Okay.
We have used the best camera that we have in the world.
Yes.
We have designers who came to this. It's a proper like the international stuff, you know. Designers came on set, makeup artist came on set, and not just one sign language interpreter.
Wow.
I have like 7
with the song
in one song.
Maybe that should be launched here. I'll speak to my producer, so at least we also get to have the full experience of what it is that Collins does. We celebrate you for that. And now, as we come to a close, amid all this push for inclusion, this push to ensure that there's recognition and appreciation for that matter, sometimes it gets to a point where there are advantages and disadvantages to the same. And I think even with the talk of women, affirmative action, push the women, it gets to a point where, again, the women themselves say, you know what, we do not need to be endorsed. We can go out there and do this for ourselves. And therefore, then you see that that push for affirmative action goes lower and lower and lower. Do you suppose, are you not scared that we're going to get to that point and maybe it's going to be a disadvantage as we close?
Yeah, good that you mentioned about affirmative action. I was reading an article the other day, somebody saying, because there was an award given to the best female engineer of the year. They're like, why does it have to be female engineer of the year? Can't it just be engineer of the year?
Engineer of the year, now you see it.
In the case of disability, we are very, very far from where we need to be. There are structures which need to be reset. There are structures which need to be overhauled, the education sector being one of them. Because with education, you create the biggest impact for this generation and the next generation. It means that any child born in this country with any type of disability, they have a place for them. Any type, whether they don't have a limb, whether they any type of disability, even psychosocial disabilities, they can go to a school, get educated by a properly trained teacher, and they exploit their potential. Right now, you have a child who is taken to a school. That child has a visual impairment, so they are low vision. It means that they can't see quite far. And because they can still see a few things, their parents will not take them to a special school. They are taken to a regular school. But in that regular school, they need some level of accommodation to be able to play in the same level as every other kid.
Yeah.
It means that the teacher needs to either bring them closer to the board. The teacher needs to spend more time with this child than the other kids. And it means that if they are doing an exam, that they are given a bit more time. Right now, children across the country were doing the exams. What reasonable accommodation measures were kept by the government for children with slow learning disabilities, for children with difficulty with visual impairment? What reasonable accommodation needs are provided? It means that you create a bar which automatically eliminates so many other people. And then on this other hand, set up policies and say you need to hire 5% of your employee portfolio as people with disabilities. But even if you would allocate 5% to every single institution in this country, you still wouldn't get them.
All right.
You see? So what we are saying is that with disability inclusion, we are still very, very far in terms of applying it. And the government has a major role in it, as well any other institution. So the government always supports the industry. So if the government is supporting the industry and the private sector alliance says that from now onwards, we need the government to do this for us to allow us to support people with disabilities.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve Njenga. My producer was guiding me that we are almost coming to a close, that I missed the very last point. But then again, it's all about us getting to the drawing board and understanding how best we can have persons with disability included in all the activities in society. I think that's really a commendable thing. And so as we close it, unless it's something you want to say in 30 seconds, I think you'll allow me to close it at that as we look forward to host you again.
What I will say is just disability is just a perception.
It's in the mind.
It's just in the mind. These people can do things that you cannot do.
Right.
Or they can do better than you.
And we have seen that over time. We have definitely seen that over time. Why don't we give them that space? Why don't we show them that indeed they are valuable?
If everyone in the world was a marathoner and you couldn't run, you are the one with a disability in that world.
That's true. That is true. But that does not mean that you actually are.
It's just that everyone else, because they are a marathoner and you can't run, they don't give you an opportunity because then you can't run. Right. So if everyone was a Kipchoge and you are not,
then you're not.
And let's not forget that sign language is a language just like Luya, Kikuyu, Kalenjin, or Germany.
High five to our sign language interpreters here, Anne, and the other one is Mapesa.
Mini
Mbesa. I always, I don't know where this. I always find it so hard. Every time I have Mini on set, I have to write it down so at least I can. Because I keep asking her, Mini Mbesa. That's very unique, but very nice. I know names. So yes, that's very. And we close it at that. I'm sure they're all passionate about this. Most of the times you see how passionate they are when we're talking these matters. They were looking at our poster yesterday and reacting to that, and so we say thank you so much to them also, and to you for keeping us company. We all keep talking about this. It is incumbent upon us as a society to bring that shift. You and me. So make sure that you're part and parcel of the same. We'll close it at that. Asante sana once again, Steve and Collins. My name is Linda Alela. It was good having you from the Word Go. I get to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you.